بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم جميعا في حلقة جديدة من حلقات اسأل سعوديون في أمريكا. حلقتنا اليوم بعنوان التحضير الأمثل لاختبارات القبول الجامعي، سنناقش فيها اختبارات الGRE، الجيمات والتوفل. طبعا نستقبل استفساراتكم وأسئلتكم عن طريق الهاشتاج اسأل سعوديون في أمريكا على صفحة تويتر. ضيفة حلقتنا اليوم هي ممثلة معهد كابلن الأستاذة نورة خليل. أولا أهلا بك أستاذة نورة، عرفينا بنفسك.
أهلا نور، thank you على الانترودكشن. أنا اسمي نورة خليل وبشتغل مع كابلن تيست بريب. أنا بشتغل مع الطالبة اللي جايين من السعودية تبع الملحقية في أمريكا، وبعمل لهم programs وclasses للتست that they have to take للgraduate school. فمن التست دول فيهم GRE والجيمات والتوفل، وحتى في الMCAT والLSAT والDAT. بس I work majority with the GRE, GMAT, TOEFL. وبشتغل مع طالبة من منحكيات تانيين كمان، بس the majority of them come from Saudi. And thank you for inviting me onto the show. شكرا على العزومة اليوم.
شكرا جزيلا لك. عفوا، يعطيك العافية. الآن ستبدأ الأستاذة نورة بشرح موجز عن اختبارات القبول الGRE والجيمات والتوفل، ومن ثم سنجيب على أسئلتكم واستفساراتكم. So go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation, and Noor will try to follow along and translate as well for those of you that are not understanding. But I'm just going to give a very brief overview of the general information you need to know about the GRE, GMAT, and TOEFL. And then we'll leave the room open for questions after I give the brief presentation. So I'll go ahead and start. So we're going to start by going over the GRE. The first question you ask yourself is, who takes the GRE? Students applying to graduate school programs in the United States. Now, these graduate school programs can vary. You can either be applying to a science program, an engineering program. You can be applying to an MBA program, because a lot of MBA programs accept the GRE. You can be applying to PhD programs. It really varies. But most programs, graduate school programs, accept the GRE, and therefore you're required to take it before you apply to graduate school. So what does the GRE look like? And this is a very, very basic overview. It's obviously, there's a lot more to it than this. But there is analytical writing, which is one section, and it has 2 questions. They're 30 minutes each. So these are kind of like a short essay. There's the verbal reasoning, and that has 2 sections with 20 questions per section. And again, this test is timed, so you have to really pace yourself. There's also the quantitative reasoning, which has 2 sections with 20 questions per section. And then there are some unscored research or varied sections. Those ones, they're not scored, obviously, but they are put in for research, and you won't know what they are. So there will be 1 or 2 extra additional sessions that you have to do. You won't know that they're scored or not. So take every section seriously. And then to prepare for the GRE, you can take a test prep course, you can prepare at home, you can prepare with however you feel comfortable, but it's really important to prepare for it just because you really want to score high on this exam, since it's a huge factor and in which school you will be accepted to for graduate school. Now, I have several tips for you that I think might be helpful for those of you that are about to take the GRE, who are studying for it now, or who just are interested in this general information. So in regards to the verbal section, and please take note of this tip, and if you want it in typing later, I'm happy to send it to you. And we have a lot more tips as well. Whenever a new reading comprehension passage appears, there's a note above the passage indicating how many questions are in the accompanying question set. If a passage only has 1 accompanying question, then test takers should read the question stem, but not answer the choices, before reading the passage, so that they know what to look for when reading. If a passage has 2 or more accompanying questions, then test takers should read the passage before looking at any of the questions. The next tip is, many test takers spend too much time on quantitative comparisons. That's one part of the quantitative reasoning. One way to save time is to note that on any question that compares 2 specific values, the answer cannot be D, which states that the relationship between the quantities cannot be determined. If 2 specific values are being compared, one of them has to be greater, so test takers can eliminate D, and then guess from the remaining choices and move on. And Noor, I don't know if you want to translate now or leave this for after, but...
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay, so I'll give you some time.
أنا راح أقول موجز عن اختبار الجي ار اي باللغة العربية. أول شيء اختصار الجي ار اي Graduate Record Examination. امتحان الجي ار اي امتحان لطلاب الدراسات العليا، وغالبا يطلب من طلاب العلوم والهندسة وغيرها من التخصصات. ينقسم الاختبار إلى 3 أقسام. القسم الكمي يشمل أسئلة في الرياضيات، وعبارة عن قسمين 2 sections with 20 questions per each و35 دقيقة إلى السكشن الواحد. القسم الثاني هو القسم اللغوي أو النظري، ويعتمد على مصطلحات عريقة في اللغة الإنجليزية، وعبارة عن قسمين 20 سؤال لكل قسم و35 دقيقة إلى كل قسم. القسم الثالث عبارة عن القسم الكتابي، ويعتمد على مسألة يتم تحليلها بفكر منطقي سليم والقدرة على الكتابة بشكل علمي. عبارة عن سكشن واحد وسؤالين و30 دقيقة إلى كل سؤال. طبعا تحضير الامتحان يكون بأخذ كورس أو كورسات خاصة من المعاهد، سواء معهد كابلن أو المعهد اللي متواجد فيه الطالب، والاستعانة بالكتب ومقاطع الفيديو التعريفية وحفظ المصطلحات المهمة، وفي كمان أخذ امتحانات تجريبية أونلاين. فهذه الأشياء كلها تساعد. Now with the Gmat.
Thank you, Noor. Moving on to the Gmat.
أستاذة نورة ممكن الحين تعرفنا باختصار. أيوة.
So students applying to MBA programs in the United States take the Gmat. What is an MBA program? If you want a master's in business administration or any sort of business program, you will be required to take the Gmat. So it is important that you know what the Gmat looks like. And what does it look like? There is an analytical writing section. That's one section, and it's 30 minutes. There's an integrated reasoning, which has 12 questions. The quantitative reasoning, which has 37 questions. And then the verbal reasoning, which has 41 questions. Again, this test is also timed, so it's important for you to pace yourself throughout the entire time you are actually writing it. This test is also very important because MBA schools really look at your Gmat scores when they're considering you, just because they know that there are a lot of varying factors, but the Gmat is the consistent one that they can look for to know who to bring into their school. So it's really important that you prepare for the Gmat. And again, the same way like you would for GRE, you can take a course, you can do your own self-studying or prepare online, but it's important to prepare because when you go into these tests, all of your scores count, and that goes for GRE and Gmat. So make sure that when you go in, you know what you're doing, and you can take them more than once, but at the same time, you don't want to take them too many times. And I think especially with Gmat, they like to see only a few scores. So it's important to prepare before you take it. And you can always take a practice test. For any test, you can go on a company website, you can go on the Gmat website, which is mba.com, or GRE website, which is ets.com, and from there you can actually take practice tests to see how you'll do, and then from there you can decide if you want to prepare with a course or in person, or if you want to go ahead and take the test right away. So I'll go ahead and give you some brief tips for the Gmat that are very helpful for those who are either currently taking the test or studying for the test or are interested in learning more about the test. 80% of sentence correction questions on the verbal section have an error in the provided sentence. 20% are correct as written. Of the sentences with errors, a full 70% have errors related to the first word in the underlined portion of the sentence. On data sufficiency, test takers should spend most of their time determining what is needed for sufficiency. The more time is spent up front analyzing the information provided, the easier it will be to accurately evaluate the statements. 2/3 of data sufficiency questions ask for the specific value of something. Only 1/3 ask yes or no questions. Yes or no data sufficiency questions are much more difficult than our value questions, so many test takers over-prepare for them and don't prepare as well for value questions. Noor, I'll let you go ahead now and translate.
Okay, شكرا جزيلا. امتحان الجيمات اختصار إلى Graduate Management Admission Test. امتحان الجيمات غالبا ما يطلب من طلاب الإدارة وتخصصات البزنس بشكل عام. ينقسم إلى عدة أقسام. قسم الكتابة التحليلية عبارة عن قسم واحد 30 دقيقة، وقسم الفهم الكمي لحل المشاكل الرقمية 37 سؤال و75 دقيقة، والقسم الكلامي 41 سؤال و75 دقيقة أيضا، والاستنتاج المنطقي 12 سؤال ونص ساعة. وتوجد دورات في المعاهد لهذا الاختبار وننصح بالتحضير له. اختبار التوفل مع الأستاذة نورة.
شكرا يا نور. أستاذة نور. So who takes the TOEFL? And this might not apply to all of you because a lot of you might have already completed your English language studies and you might be in undergraduate school or graduate school. But for those of you that are in Saudiya and are planning on coming here to study, or for those of you that are in your English language studies right now, you will most likely have to take the TOEFL when you apply to your undergraduate and graduate degree programs. Many universities require the TOEFL, so it's important that you know what you need to prepare for it and to actually take it so that you have everything that you need for the university. TOEFL is for international students applying to higher education institutes in the US, or anybody who's an English language learner. So if you're in ESL program, then you're considered an English language learner. Now, what does the TOEFL look like? The TOEFL has a reading section that's 35 to 56 questions. There's a listening section that's 34 to 51 questions, a speaking section that has 6 tasks that they ask you to do, and a writing section that has 2 tasks. From what I've been told by some research that has been done is that a lot of the Saudis actually struggle most with the speaking. So it's important, because each section is weighed heavily, it's important to prepare for each one equally, not just study for the reading or listening, but also to practice your speaking, whether it be inside a classroom in your English language or outside of your English language classroom. It's important to really prepare for the TOEFL because English language classes, the TOEFL is not geared towards what you're learning in your English language. It's somewhat different. So you have to know what the TOEFL looks like. You have to buy the book. You have to prepare for it. You can do a course, or you can just go teach yourself. Some of your English language programs might prepare you for the TOEFL already, so that might help as well. But it is important to prepare. I do have some TOEFL tips for you. When listening to conversations, particularly conversations between 2 students, focus on the area of disagreement between them and make sure you know which opinion expressed belongs to whom. Take notes as you listen and create 2 columns to help you keep track of which information is relevant to which speaker. On the writing section, an essay structure is more important than length. Test takers should take at least 4 to 6 minutes to plan the flow of each paragraph in their essays before they begin writing. I also want to note that if you're looking for more information on TOEFL, GRE, or Gmat, you can go on to their websites, that's the company's websites that distributes the tests, and you can figure out what scores you need, what the test, how long it will take you, although this is available here, what the score scale is like, what the test actually looks like, so you can see a sample copy of it. You can get all of this information on their websites, and I can provide that for you as soon as we finish this presentation. I'll go ahead and let Noor translate. Thank you, Noor.
شكرا جزيلا. نصائح جدا مفيدة ومهمة للطلاب. امتحان التوفل في قسمين، paper based و IBT. paper based تحريري راح يكون، وال IBT على الكمبيوتر. الامتحان مقسم إلى 4 أقسام أيضا. قسم الاستماع listening عبارة عن 34 إلى 51 سؤال من 60 إلى 90 دقيقة. القسم الثاني التحدث speaking عبارة عن 6 tasks 20 دقيقة. طبعا في الاي بي تي في التوفل قسم التحدث راح يكون مع الجهاز الكمبيوتر. يعني ممكن يكون أصعب لدى البعض أنهم يختبروا عن طريق الكمبيوتر في السبيكينج، في التحدث، من اختبار الآيلتس مثلا لما يكون شخص أمامك. بالنسبة للقراءة، قسم القراءة 35 إلى 56 سؤال من 60 إلى 80 دقيقة، والكتابة 2 تاسك وسؤالين 50 دقيقة إلى السؤالين. الدرجة المطلوبة غالبا في التحريري البيبر بيس من 500 إلى 550، وفي الاي بي سي 79 بالنسبة للأندر جراجويت. طبعا هذه الدرجات غير ثابتة وتختلف من جامعة إلى أخرى. ودرجة امتحان التوفل غالبا تبقى سارية المفعول لمدة 2 من أخذ الامتحان، بينما الجي ار اي والجيمات ممكن انها تكون سارية المفعول لمدة 5 سنوات. طبعا هذا الشيء يختلف من جامعة لجامعة ثانية. بعض الجامعات ممكن انها تركز على تاريخ أخذ الامتحان، وبعضها ممكن تتغاضى وما تهتم إلى هذا الشيء. الحين راح ناخذ أسئلة الطلاب بخصوص اختبارات القبول، وراح نحاول أن نجاوب عليها ونفيد الجميع. السؤال إلى الأستاذة نورة: ما هي بعض الاستراتيجيات التي تساعد الطلاب على اجتياز اختبارات القبول؟ Some of the strategies that you think that can help the students to pass these tests.
Are you saying passages or study tips?
It's not clear from the questions, but I think like in general.
That's actually a good question to ask. I have several study planning tips that I think are important for students to follow along. I'll read them for you in English and then I'll try to translate as well. So scientific research shows that cramming for a test does not help you absorb information better. يعني مفروض ما تذاكروش كل حاجة مرة واحدة عشان مش هتعرفوا تفتكروا يعني كويس كده. Break things up over the course of 2 to 3 months. قسموا الstudying ما بين 2 أو 3 شهور، عشان لو عملتوه كله يعني في أسبوع زي ما أنا قلت هيبقى صعب إن أنتوا تفتكروا كل حاجة اللي ذاكرتوه. Do no more than 2-hour chunks. Your brain doesn't absorb stuff that way. So if you can do 2-hour chunks 5 days a week, that will get you so much further than 10 hours for the course of a weekend. فما تذاكروش أكتر من ساعتين في كل وقت، عشان لو عملتوا أكتر من ساعتين مش هتعرفوا، يعني هيبقى information كتير عليكم وهيبقى صعب إن انتوا تفتكروا كل حاجة اللي علمتوه. فقسموا كل حاجة وذاكروا ساعتين، يعني اعملوا ساعتين كل يوم أحسن عن تعملوا كل حاجة في الويكند، في يوم السبت أو الأحد. ده أحسن لكم عشان تفتكروا كل حاجة وتعملوا أحسن في الامتحان. Focus on targeted areas, but shift to strengths as test date gets closer. People tend to focus only on weaknesses and ignore their strengths, but end up doing worse than expected on the test because haven't looked at stuff they're good at in months. When you start off studying, spend 80% of your time working on your weaknesses and 20% of your time on strengths. But then as you get closer to the test date, you should switch that plan. فده مهم قوي، عشان في ناس كتير قوي ممكن عندهم حاجة إن هم كوين، يعني they're strong in it، وهم عارفين إن هم عارفين الماتيريال ده، فهم هيروحوا يركزوا على الحاجات اللي ما يعرفوهاش ومش بيذاكروا أي حاجة اللي هم خلاص عارفينها. بس you have to لازم تذاكروا اللي انتوا خلاص عارفينها، عشان لازم يعني to remind yourself what you know عشان ممكن تنسوه. it's important إن يعني في الأول لما تبدأوا تذاكروا تعملوا 80% الوقت على الحاجات اللي مش عارفينها your weaknesses، و20% من الوقت على الحاجات اللي يعني you're good at اللي انتوا خلاص عارفينها. بس قبل الامتحان على طول بدلوا واعملوا 20% على الحاجات اللي مش عارفينها و80% على اللي انتوا عارفينها، عشان تفتكروا كل حاجة وعشان لما تاخدوا الامتحان تعملوا كويس على الاثنين مش على بس اللي مش عارفينها. والآخر حاجة spend as much time reviewing as you do practicing new questions. I think انتوا كلكم عارفين كده، بس مهم ان يعني بعد لما تعلموا نفسكم حاجات جديدة لازم تاخدوا نفس الوقت عشان تريفيو كل حاجة، يعني to look over وتشوفوا، يعني ممكن نور تعمل translation، بس to review everything that you've already learned، عشان لما تعلموا نفسكم حاجة جديدة لازم تاخدوا وقت عشان تعرفوا ايه اللي تعلمتوها. يعني you need time to register the new stuff you learned, so you have to review it. So split your studying in half the time learning new stuff and half the time reviewing the new stuff. I see a question
جميل
here.
جدا. إجابة.
شكرا.
أوكي. التحضير طبعا للاختبار هي أهم استراتيجية لاختبارات القبول، إن الواحد يروح يحضر للاختبار وبعدين يروح يختبر علشان تكون عنده فكرة عامة عن الاختبار، والتركيز على نقاط القوة ونقاط الضعف مثل ما تفضلت الأستاذة نورة وقالت، والتركيز على نقاط الضعف ومحاولة تنميتها وتطويرها للحصول على نتائج أفضل. في سؤال: ما الفرق بين التوفل والآيلتس؟ What's the difference between TOEFL and IELTS?
So the IELTS is the British exam. It's the exam, I'm sorry, the British exam. So students who have studied English in the British English language learning, they actually prefer the IELTS. Whereas the TOEFL is what is taken in America, or what has been created here in America. It's an American English. Not all universities accept both, although the IELTS is starting to become a lot more popular. I know that a lot of international students, they prefer the IELTS just because they're in Saudi, you learn English in the British English. So the IELTS tends to be easier. But the TOEFL is more accepted from what I understand. It varies on the university and the program.
صحيح. أغلب الجامعات الحين ممكن إنها تقبل IELTS أو تقبل TOEFL، يعني اثنينهم مقبولين. أنا اختبرت باختبارين وأحس إن اختبار الآيلتس أسهل بالنسبة إلي شخصيا، بس بعض الطلاب ممكن يقولوا لا التوفل أسهل، فهي تختلف من طالب إلى ثاني. وأنصح الطلاب إذا اختبر التوفل وما جاب الدرجة اللي هو يبغاها يختبر الآيلتس أو العكس. طيب في سؤال: هل هناك كتب معينة تنصحون بها للتحضير لتلك الاختبارات؟ Are there any specific books
for studying?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are. There are many different companies that have books for each test. I know that Kaplan, for example, they have books that you can buy online without even taking courses. You don't always have to take a course, although the Saudi Arabian Cultural Mission does pay for you to prepare. But if you want to just buy a book online, you can go on Amazon, and there are reviews. You can read the reviews and see which company you think is most suitable for you. But every test has a book to help you prepare, and some have many books. So pace yourself.
Yeah. هنالك كتب كثيرة. أعتقد أن أغلب الكتب مفيدة وتساعد الطلاب للتحضير، وننصحهم بعدم الاكتفاء بالكتب بس، لكن الاستفادة من تجارب الآخرين، أخذ الامتحانات التجريبية عن طريق الإنترنت، مشاهدة بعض مقاطع اليوتيوب اللي فيها تبس وشرح لبعض الأقسام وبعض الاختبارات. سؤال: How can we register for these tests? كيف يتم التسجيل لتلك الامتحانات؟
You have to register by going on their website. So for Gmat, you have to go on mba.com. For the GRE, you have to go on the ets.com website. Toefl, I believe, I'm not sure which company they're affiliated with. I think it's also ETS, actually. So you would go on there. You find the nearest location where they're administering the test to you. You put in your address. You find which date and time works best for you. And then you go and you register and you have to pay. There is a fee, but for those of you who are covered by the SACM scholarship program, SACM pays for the test. You just have to be reimbursed.
شكرا. سؤال: Does SACM pay for DAT courses? I don't know what that stands for.
The DAT is for the dental. It's the dental school exam. فالجامعة مش عارفة السنان مش عارفة هو إيه. But if you're applying to dental school, SACM does pay for the DAT, but you have to get special permission. I know that there is a program in Richmond, Virginia, that I know of off the top of my head, that SACM has approved Saudi students to study there for the dental school. But again, they don't approve it for everybody because it's very competitive and very difficult to get into a dental school in the United States. So you do have to get special permission for that. But they do pay for you to prep.
Brilliant. How long does it gonna take to receive the score?
It depends on the test, but I believe you receive it right away. I think with the Toefl you don't, but unless you're doing it online. But all of the online tests, you see your score right after.
مثلا اختبار الGRE تكون القسمين، القسم الكمي والقسم اللفظي أو اللغوي يكون عن طريق أونلاين تشوفهم على طول، بس القسم الكتابي تظهر النتيجة بعد أسبوعين غالبا 10 to 15 days.
صح. و I think هو كده للجيمات كمان. الرايتنج كمان بياخد أسبوعين عشان يوصل السكور. Yeah, Noor, you're muted.
What's the most difficult section in GRE?
It depends on the student, honestly. يعني some students have the most difficulty in the verbal reasoning, with the vocabulary, the sections that require vocabulary, because your vocabulary, if English is not your first language, the vocabulary might not be very strong. Other students struggle in the quantitative because the quantitative follows the American metric system, whereas many of you studied in the British metric system. And so sometimes it's difficult to do those equations without knowing the proper metric system. So it depends on what kind of student you are, and it also depends on what kind of learner you are. Some people struggle more with, filling in multiple choice, or others just they're not good writers and they don't know how to write well. So it really varies on how you are on tests in general.
نعم، الصعوبة تعتبر نسبية نوعا ما مثل ما تفضلتي وقلتي. مثلا القسم الكمي في مسائل رياضية بعض الطلاب يستصعبها والبعض الآخر يعتبرها سهلة، فهي تفرق من شخص إلى شخص آخر. ولازم كل طالب يعرف نقاط قوته ونقاط ضعفه ويركز عليها مثل ما قلنا مسبقا. والتحضير ما يقتصر على معهد أو كتاب فقط، في سيديات تباع ممكن أنها تكون مساعدة أيضا. وأنصح بالتنويع في تحضير لاختبار القبول واللجوء إلى مصادر عدة للإلمام وزيادة المعرفة وأيضا الاستفادة من تجارب الآخرين. في سؤال: Are the classes in the morning or evening?
I'm assuming you're referring to the preparation courses. If you're preparing with Kaplan, our classes are majority in the evening. We do customized classes and we can have in the morning, but they're generally in the evening, or on the weekends they're in the morning. It depends on what you sign up for.
Okay. In the argumentative section, what exactly the question is looking for?
So I'm not sure what you mean by that. I think it depends on the question. For this specific, if whoever asked this question, if you do have a specific question about a question that you're looking at when you're preparing, they can put my contact information here, and I'm happy to ask a faculty member and have them answer any specific question you have. I can have Noor put my contact information in there for you so that you can reach out. But again, it depends on what the question is saying. I'm not familiar with that.
نعم، لأن الأسئلة تختلف من اختبار لاختبار ثاني، ومن أيضا نفس الاختبار أحيانا، بس إن أنا اختبرت مثلا اليوم، الأسبوع الجاي يختلف السؤال أحيانا، وغالبا يكون الارجيومنت إن agree أو disagree. راح يكون هذا هو المطلوب، إنه رأي الطالب وكيف إنه يوافق الستيتمنت أو إنه يعاكس الستيتمنت في رأيه. سؤال: Does the student has to be a full-time student at Kaplan, or can I be in my university and attending classes at Kaplan without transferring my civic?
Yes, you can be attending university and take Kaplan classes as well without transferring your I-20. Kaplan Test Prep has part-time courses, and they work with students who do not need an I-20 and who are already studying on another I-20 in another program. So yes, you can just go on their website, captest.com/SACM, and you can see what courses are available for you.
Okay, سؤال. What to do if I don't know the topic that I've been asked for? How should I answer such questions?
So this is a tricky question because there are going to be times where you just don't know. For writing, for example, if you don't understand the essay question, then in that situation, I would advise that you just go about and answer what you do know and follow the proper essay format when you do, because they're not just looking at how you answer, but they're looking at seeing that you also are good at, you know how to write the question properly. But make sure that you answer what you can. So if you can't answer everything, just answer what you can to the best of your ability, because if you leave it blank, then you don't get any points for it. So it's important to try to answer something so that you get some points.
نعم، ننصح الطلاب إنهم يجاوبوا، يعني إذا ما كنت فاهم كل السؤال على الأقل راح تكون فاهم كلمة واحدة أو كلمتين، فتحاول إنك تبني باراجراف من هذا اللي أنت فهمته. يعني حاول أبدا لا تخلي الإجابة فارغة أو فاضية، لازم إنك تحاول حتى لو ما فهمت أي شيء. طيب, how can we overcome the difficulties in the writing section for the GRE?
My best advice for you would be to practice writing essays. There are many practice questions available online. If you're in a preparation course, you can do it there, but you really need to practice writing essays, because a lot of the difficulty is actually writing, at least for the international students, in my opinion, because you're writing, your vocabulary might not be as strong, so you want to practice answering questions. I would also make sure you read a lot. Honestly, reading a lot gives you more information, you'll have more knowledge, and you will understand what a lot of the questions are. So between reading and writing, I mean, really that's the best tip I can give you, is you have to just practice. And again, if you don't want to do a course, you can go online, you can go on the ETS website. They give you practice essay questions. Now, like Noor mentioned, Sister Noor mentioned, the questions change for every test. So you might do one practice question and that's not what you're going to get. But there is a chance that through all the practice, you might get one of the essays that you practiced on. You never know. So it's better to do as many as possible. That way, if there's a chance that you get it, you're in good luck.
Yeah. In the reading part, do I have to read the whole paragraphs, or reading the introduction and the conclusion is the best way in order not to waste time?
I would read the whole paragraph, but summarize. So you need to read everything, because the middle part could be asking you something. Now, they do say that when you go back to answer, look at the introduction and conclusion, look at the beginning and end. But you need to read the entire paragraph so that you get every point. But read it, skim through it quickly. Get the main points from each sentence. There's a lot of fluff writing in there you don't have to read. So look for the main points in each part of the passage, and that's what you should highlight. You can just highlight that and focus on that when you're answering it.
نعم. أو إذا كان ما في متسع من الوقت وما في وقت كافي، ممكن إنه هو يقرأ مثلا الجملة الأولى، السنتنس الأولى والأخيرة من كل باراجراف، بحيث إنه هو يعرف هذا الباراجراف عن إيش بالضبط، بالإضافة طبعا للintroduction والconclusion. طيب, سؤال. في speaking sections, are there some specific words that we have to use when we want to answer?
I'm assuming this is for the TOEFL, and I think that depends on what the questions and tasks are. The speaking section you'll have 6 tasks, and each task will tell you exactly how to answer. I would focus on making sure that your sentences are correct and that you're speaking complete sentences. I think depending on the task, if you need to have stronger vocabulary in some tasks, then use the stronger vocabulary. If the task is focusing on proper sentence, articulating proper sentences, then focus on that. It varies depending on the task.
No. What shall Shirley give to those who have weaknesses in math?
So outside of Kaplan's test preparation courses, which we have for each test, there is a quantitative portion that prepares you on the quantitative parts of the exams. We have other additional supplemental courses that you can take separately. For example, if you need a math refresher, let's say you forgot all of your basic math that you learned in high school, and you forgot, your basic if you got your basic calculus, just the basic equations that you need to know, and conversions, we have something called Math Refresher, and that refreshes all of that for you, and you can take it in addition to the preparation course. But I do want to note that SACM does not pay for the Math Refresher, so I would only advise that if it's something that you feel you need personally before you continue with the other preparation course.
Yeah. So, a question. Does SACM pay for GRE or Gmat for undergraduate students?
They do, but you have to be in your final year of undergraduate studies. You have to be in the process of getting approved for the graduate school scholarship, because the test prep is considered undergraduate school scholarship. But if you're in your undergrad and you're being approved, then you can take it. You also have to give a copy of your transcript from the university and a letter from your university to get the approval. And in some cases, in your second to last year, you may be approved depending on your academic standing. But I would check with your SACM advisor.
Yeah. هذه المسألة حصلت لي أنا شخصيا. أنا حابة إني أخذ اختبار الGRE وأنا طالبة بكالوريوس. عملت طلب استفسار في SACM، والادفايزر قال إن ما في تعويض إلى طلبة البكالوريوس. بس بعدين استفسرت من الدكتور العمر شخصيا، وقال لي إنه لا، يعوض طالب البكالوريوس إذا كان ناوي على مرحلة ترقية البعثة، فالطالب يعوض. So, a question. Some institutes do not have Kaplan or any other institute for preparation. Is there courses online? Are there any courses online?
So, Kaplan Test Prep, we can run a course anywhere in the United States. If we don't have a course that's showing on our website in the city that you live in, and this is for part-time courses only, not for full-time courses, we can run one for you. We just need a minimum of at least 7 students to do that. Unfortunately, SACM does not pay for online courses. So if you want to take an online course, you'll have to pay for it out of pocket.
Yeah. شكله ما في أسئلة. أي نقطة حابة تضيفيها أو حابة تنصح فيها الطلاب? Any more tips or advices that you want to share with us?
Sure. So I do want to give a general tip for those students who are preparing now for either studying in the United States or in their English language studies. It's important to plan ahead, because you have a very short time, as you know. For those of you on scholarship, you only have 1.5 years or 2 years to learn English, to figure out what program you're applying to, and to take the necessary tests and apply. So it's really important that you plan your time properly. Give yourself time to learn English, obviously, but then give yourself time to prepare for your tests and to do your applications. Don't leave it for last minute, because if your I-20 is going to expire, your time will be up and you won't have time to do what you want. And I promise you that those students that I see that prepare everything ahead of time, they end up getting into the program of their choice. The other tip I would say is really challenge yourself. Put out metrics for you that you have to pass, so that way you can, when you reach every goal, you can go even further. And what I mean by that is, in terms of you can apply this to test prep, tell yourself, I want to get this score and I'm going to do this and that to get there. And then when you do, you could even reach for the next score, and give yourself time to do that. So as I said before, give yourself 2 to 3 months. I would advise, if you're looking to get into a competitive program, I would give yourself even more time, just because English is not your first language, and it's understandable that when the language is not your first language of the test you're taking, it's going to be more difficult. So really give yourself time, prepare ahead of time, and ask questions. I think Saudis in USA is amazing because they're here to help. They give you all of the relevant information you need, and it's students who did exactly what you're doing now. So if you want to know what the process is and your advisor is busy or can't help you, Saudis in USA can help with that. So just ask questions with for whoever's willing to answer and help.
شكرا جزيلا، يعطيك العافية. بالنسبة للأونلاين courses that Kaplan offer, in this case, does the student have to pay the amount in full?
Yes, if it's an online course, you do. If you're going to take it and pay out of pocket, you have to pay in full. For on-site courses, we have an agreed discount with SACM, and then they pay for it for you.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You can do installment payments. You can. I think it depends on which one you pick, but usually you start by paying, I think, $200, and then you have to pay over the course of a few months. Yes, you can definitely do installment payments.
Sure, I think this answers. So, ما في أسئلة؟ شكرا جزيلا لك أستاذة نورة، يعطيك العافية، كفيتي ووفيتي، وصراحة إن شاء الله الطلاب يكونوا استفادوا من حلقتنا لليوم. يعطيك العافية، وإن شاء الله نستضيفك في الحلقات الجاية ونتكلم عن اختبارات ثانية بتوسع أكثر. يعطيك العافية، شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا، شكرا أخت نور وأخو عمر. Thank you everybody for your time. I really appreciate it. If you have any other questions, they can give you my contact information and you can find me at Kaplan. I appreciate your time today and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. نتمنى للجميع التوفيق والنجاح. ولمزيد من الاستفسارات طبعا راح أحط الكونتاكت انفورميشن حق الأستاذة نورة، وأتمنى من الطلاب أيضا الانضمام لمجموعتنا، مجموعة اختبارات القبول التابعة للسعوديون في أمريكا، على صفحة الفيسبوك، وإن شاء الله نفيد ونستفيد. يعطيكم العافية جميعا، مع السلامة.